All right, over 6 months have passed since the Trump administration failed to meet their deadline in reunifying thousands of migrant children with their families. These children were separated from their parents or guardians by CBP along the Mexican border, fueling controversy around the federal crackdown on illegal crossing. Now, at the initial deadline, at least 1,500 kids were still in juvenile holding centers. That number has since grown. Now, if being separated from their parents weren't enough trauma, now published reports documenting sexual abuse of these migrant children emerging, with dozens accusing officials of molestation. Now, according to the Office of Refugee Resettlement, over 1,200 sexual abuse allegations were filed on behalf of these detained minors. But now, since the Trump administration's no-tolerance policy began, many facilities are seeking to expand their holding capacities.
Were you prepared for the consequences of separating the kids? In other words, to reunify them quickly?
Unification is not something that Border Patrol handles. We handle the apprehension and the transfer.
The average number of time the children are spending in these centers is growing.
I'm going to try and hold it together because this has been such a traumatic experience for so many Americans watching what has been happening. Does anyone know how many are still separated from their parents? Nobody knows.
To delve a little deeper into this growing crisis of detention and abuse, we now turn to immigration attorney Allen Orr. All right, Allen. Hi, thanks for being with us today. I'm missing you in studio.
Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't be there.
So, Allen, there's no way to really describe this report other than alarming. So based on your expertise representing migrant clients and their children, do these findings, are they real? Are they true?
They are very real, and I think what we need to look at is a little bit of history, because this started happening around 2015 that these reports were coming out, which were under the Obama administration. And then the Obama administration did some investigation, and at the very end of the Obama administration, they decided that they would stop working with these private prisons, because one of the things that you saw in the hearing was they were saying, these aren't really government officials, these are our contractors. And what you heard the congressional members say was, I don't care if it's you or your contractors, you're the individuals that are in control. But once the Trump administration started, one of the very first things that Sessions did was he reopened these private prisons or for-profit prisons, and that's where we see all of this discontent happen, because these are not trained professionals to handle individuals that are being detained. And
so, especially in your experience, you're saying this is true.
This is true.
If this epidemic of sexual abuse is then, a byproduct of separating minors, whether it's by CBP or their third-party contractors, these kids are separated from their parents. Leaving them alone, isn't this just blatantly an unsafe environment? In other words, is family separation policy, is it basically all to blame?
Family separation is to blame for the exacerbation in the numbers. I mean, also think about this. These kids are only in these facilities for 45 days. So all of this is occurring in a 45-day period with other individual adults around them under the supervision of the government. So yes, this is a humanitarian issue. And what you're hearing about is the sexual violations. Don't forget about the other health violations and concerns that are happening. People not being fed, not given the appropriate health care. So the issue here is the dissolution of these private prison contracts, and that if we're going to detain people, that we should detain them in our own system for not-for-profit prisons. And then if we're going to do that, because it costs around $1,000 a day, is my understanding, to detain a kid in one of these facilities per day, where if we just release them immediately with their parents or didn't separate the families at all, the cost would be around $100 a day.
So there is a cost efficiency at play here. And as you say, this goes beyond any term of any one president. As you said, it began back in the Obama era. But conservative lawmakers and the president today, they argue that since separating minors from their guardians is both inhumane, it's unpopular, they know that, but keeping them together while in custody is illegal. there's no real way to handle undocumented migrants crossing the border together with their children.
Sure there is.
Is there?
Sure there
Well, what's
is,
the
because,
solution?
Absolutely. You just process the people at the port of entry and allow them into the country like we would with any other person seeking an application in this country. So when these people show up at the port of entry, they're applying for asylum. So they're not breaking the law, and so therefore they should not be detained, and so these private prisons aren't needed, right? The concern is they say that these people are not returning to their actual appointments in immigration court, but they are, and specifically the type of people who are now coming to the country. Before, in the report from both the Secretary of Homeland Security and then again in this separation hearing, you heard that rather than it being individual men that are coming to the border, it is families that are coming to the border. And with these families, they're seeking asylum, which is a legal way to enter this country. So if we want to change how we process asylum, that's fine. Congress go to work. But the current system is we should allow them in, allow the families to stay together and not separate them, because what they're doing is just holding them for 45 days and then they're releasing them to some other adult. So what is the real function of this system?
Right. So there's the complaint there that obviously, what's the point of this 45 days of holding the children? It'll serve to traumatize them, certainly. And if they are allowed into the U.S. in the future, this kind of trauma lasts for, well into their adult life. How do we deal with them when they are reunified and they are led in the States, and then now they've been traumatized by the U.S. system? Where do they go?
So that's the problem. That's the liability of the government for all these people who have these sexual abuse cases that are open, and also all of those dependent minors that are separated from their families indefinitely because they don't know where their parents are or how to return them. They've already stuck them in some kind of adoption system. So this is really America not being our best and separating people at the border for no reason at all, because we're not achieving our goal of sort of doing this harmony and unity, and we're not processing by our own immigration laws because these people are asking for asylum, which is a legal process to enter the United States.
All right, no matter which way you cut it, definitely a sad and horrible situation there. Allen Orr, always appreciate your expertise on this. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.